Hello everyone, we are from Group 4. Our group consists 3 members. First one is Ami, second one is Rico, and the third one is Imel. In this video, we are going to talk about assessing speaking. After we learn about assessing listening, from a pragmatic view of language performance, listening and speaking are almost always closely interrelated. In speaking, there are several things that need to be considered when we assess speaking, such as pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and etc. So, in this video, we will review types of spoken language and micro and macro scale of speaking, then outline numerous tasks for assessing speaking. As you can see, these are 5 basic types of speaking. First one is imitative speaking, second one is intensive speaking, third is responsive speaking, fourth is interactive speaking, and the last one is extensive speaking. Types number 1 until number 3 are discussed by group 3, and our group will discuss number 4 and 5, interactive and extensive speaking. Next is micro and macro skills of speaking. You can take a look at the table. In micro skills, first, produce differences among English phonemes, or difference in pronunciation and meaning. Second is, produce chunks of the language of different lengths. Chunks are groups of words that can be found together in language. Third is, produce English stress patterns and intonation contours. So, stress patterns can be main stress or unstressed sounds, and intonation contours is pattern of pitches, tones, or stresses in an utterance. Fourth, produce reduced forms of words and phrases and fluent speech at different rates of delivery. The last one is, use grammatical word classes, systems, word order, patterns, rules, and elliptical forms. We move to macro skills. First, appropriately accomplish communicative functions according to situations, participants, and goals. The second is, use appropriate style, registers, implicator, conversation rules, and etc. Third is, convey links and connection between events and communicate such relations. Such relation as ideas like vocal ideas and verbal ideas, and events, and the last is information. It can be new information and given information. Fourth, convey facial features, kinesics, body language, and other nonverbal cues along with verbal language. Kinesics is body motion communication, such as facial expression or gestures. The last one, develop and use a battery of speaking strategies, such as stressing and emphasizing keywords, rephrasing, and providing a context for analyzing or interpreting the meaning of words. So, we can conclude that the micro skills refer to producing the smaller chunks of language such as phonemes, morphemes, words, collocations, and phrasal units. And the macro skills imply the speaker's focus on the larger elements such as fluency, discourse, function, style, cohesion, nonverbal communication, and strategic options. If you want to see a complete version of the difference between micro and macro skills of speaking, you can take a look at pages 142 and 143, as you can see in these following images. And then, there are 3 essential points to consider when designing tasks. First, no speaking task is capable of isolating the single skill of oral production. Second, elicitation. Eliciting the specific criterion you have designated for a task can be tricky because beyond the word level, spoken language offers a number of productive options to test takers. So, make sure your elicitation prompt achieves its aims as closely as possible. And the third, score or scoring. It is important to carefully specify scoring procedures for a response so that ultimately you achieve as high a reliability index as possible.
Okay, I will continue. The next one is interactive speaking. The final categories of oral production assessment are interactive speaking and extensive speaking. Interactive speaking involves relatively long stretches, and in extensive speaking, tasks of equally long duration but that involve less interaction. The difference in the two sets of tasks is the degree of interaction with an interlocutor. So, what is interactive speaking? Interactive speaking is also different with responsive speaking. The difference is in the length and complexity of the interaction. Interactive speaking has long interaction, but in responsive speaking, it has short interaction. Interaction can take the two forms of transactional language, which has the purpose of exchanging specific information, and interpersonal exchanges, which have the purpose of maintaining social relations. So, the goal of interactive speaking is to build students' abilities using spoken language to interact with an interlocutor. There are some types of assessment for interactive speaking. The first is interview. Interview is when a task administrator and a test taker sit down in direct face-to-face exchange and proceed through a protocol of questions and directives. There are 4 level stages. The first is warm-up, the second is level check, and the third is probe, and the fourth is wind-down. So these are the examples of 4 level stages. And the first is warm-up. Warm-up or small talk, there is no scoring in this part. For example, how are you? Or what's your name? And the second is level check. Level check is using pre-planned questions, and the questions are usually designed to elicit grammar, vocabulary usage, discourse structure, and sociolinguistic factors. For instance, how long have you been in this country? And describe your home to me. And the next is prep. Prep is about difficult questions, so the interviewer will discover the limitation of the test taker's proficiency. For example, what are your goals for learning English in this program? And then the next is wind down. Wind down tells feeling about the interview or information or the purpose. For example, did you feel okay about this interview? And do you have any questions you want to ask me? Okay, so from oral production, there are 6 categories to assign a score, such as grammar, vocabulary, comprehension, fluency, pronunciation, and task. And the next is role-play. Role-play frees students to be somewhat creative in their linguistic output. The test administrator must determine the assessment objectives of the role-play, then devise a scoring technique that appropriately pinpoints those objectives. And the third is discussion and conversations. They are difficult to score, but it can assess the performance of participants. And the next is games. There are some assessment games. The first is Tinker Toy, the second is crossword puzzles, and the third is information gap grids, and the last is city maps. As assessment, the key is to specify a set of criteria and a reasonably practical and reliable scoring method. And the last is Oral Proficiency Interview or OPI. It originally known as the Foreign Service Institute or FSI test. Only certified examiners are authorized to administer the OPI. In a series of the structured tasks, the OPI is carefully designed to elicit pronunciation, fluency and integrative ability, sociolinguistic and cultural knowledge, grammar, and vocabulary. And the next slide will be explained by Ami.
So next, I will explain about extensive speaking. Extensive speaking is one of the assessment design of speaking that produce minimal verbal, such as the first one is oral presentation, and then the second is picture cute storytelling, and then retelling story or news event, and then the last is translation. So I will try to explain what is it one by one. The first one is oral presentation. So the rules for effective assessment must be involved. The first one is specific criterion, and then appropriate task, and then optimal output, and also establish a practical and reliable scoring process. So for oral presentation, a checklist or grid is a common means of scoring or evaluation. The washback effect of a such checklist can be enhanced by written comments from the teacher. And then next is about picture cute storytelling. So this activity have more than one picture, so that the test takers will continue their activity to storytelling. I mean, like to describe anything from that picture. And then next is retelling a story and news event. So the first one, the test takers hear or read a story or news event that they are asked to retell. And then the second, the objectives in assigning is listening comprehension of the original to production of a number of oral discourse features. So it is like sequence and relationship of events, stress and emphasize pattern, and then fluency and interaction with the hearer. And the last is about the scoring. So the scoring should meet the intended criteria. Last, it is translation of extended prose. So the first thing that they will do in this activity is the test taker reads with native language, then they translate it into English. And then the second, the advantage of this activity is to control the content, vocabulary, and the grammatical and discourse features. There's also one disadvantage that I know. The translation of longer text is highly specialized skill for which some individuals obtain post-baccalaureate degrees. I don't really understand about it, but I will try to find out after this. And then the last is about scoring again, the criteria of scoring. So it should take into account not only the purpose of stimulating a translation, but the possibility of errors that are unrelated to oral production ability. Okay, I think this is the end of our presentation. I hope that you all understand and get the benefits from our presentation. Thank you so much for paying attention and have a good day.